I think it's great that people are building a mystique around me, and I encourage that. And if whether they want to believe I'm in the CIA,
Like the old slogan, think globally, act locally, type of concept.
I mean, look, for different people, it's going to be different things. So, like, you guys are living in Southern Ontario, but if you guys got in touch with someone in Las Vegas who really had a lot in common with you in terms of your vision of veganism, what kind of activism, then, even if just a couple people in Las Vegas, I might advise you to say, look, work with them. If that's who you can cooperate, that's who you can make a positive difference with, okay, forget Southern Ontario. On the other hand, I think for most people, they do need to think locally in that they need to really look seriously at where they're living and how they can build a constituency in their own town. So for most people, think globally, act locally. But for some of us, no, it's just who can you cooperate with? How can you make a positive difference? Like I've said in the past, like if I stayed in British Columbia, I would probably get involved with issues to do with whales and dolphins, that kind of thing. It's not my personal interest. Like I'm just, whales are okay. It's just not my passion. But like the only issues people seem to care about there are the whales. So if you're going to promote veganism in that social context, whales and bears, you maybe got to look at cooperating with people on those issues instead. So being strategic about where you're living, who the public is. And when I say the public, it has to be the real public. Not your idea of who people should be, but who they actually are. If you live somewhere where the majority of people are right-wing Christians, you got to think seriously about how is veganism going to be presented to them. And how are you going to operate as a vegan minority in that social context? But on the other hand, as I say, via the internet, in theory, you could get something great going where you're bringing together people from opposite sides of the world. Las Vegas, Hong Kong, wherever they happen to be.
Absolutely. All right, so my next question here is, I've heard you have changed your name.
So look, guys, I'm happy. I said earlier, I think it's great that people are building a mystique around me, and I encourage that. And if whether they want to believe I'm in the CIA or I'm living a double life, one of the theories is that I never did the humanitarian work that I claim I did. That was someone else that I took over his identity. Great, build a legend. I am very honest and very open about my life, including my marriage, my divorce, my daughter on the internet. I have decided not to discuss my father's life or my mother's life. And that's actually a decision I made relatively recently. When I first started my YouTube channel, I actually really thought about whether I should talk seriously about my family life in that sense, my parents, and what happened with that. My relations with my parents were very bad. I come from a bad family, to speak very briefly. But, with time, I really felt that not discussing my family life in that sense was maybe the only way I could show respect to my parents. And I'm in a family situation where I have zero respect for my parents. It's very, very tough, mutually alienating situation. I have said on my channel, one of the things I mentioned openly, my father had 9 children. A lot of us have different names. I come from a bad family, and I'm going to have to ask people to some extent to leave it at that. So I'm not embarrassed about it. I'm not, brokenhearted about it or anything else. However, my channel deals with a lot of real things, including, whatever's going on in my life now in China. But no, and again, I also had to ask myself, would it be different after my father dies? Would I talk about that side of my life? And honestly, I think the answer permanently is no. Is that there are some things I'm not going to talk about because it's not my story to tell, even though it matters to me. And I've said that also, with my divorce, because again, there's a lot of really honest talk about my divorce. But I've said as a disclaimer to that, look, I'm only telling my story, and I'm in a sense, I'm just not even talking about my wife because that's her story to tell.
If you don't mind me asking, you can say the same thing for this question, but with your court case with your ex-wife and everything, there was no physical.
No, look, to me, the hilarious thing is, this whole controversy is like an IQ test for the vegans watching it. What everyone should pick up on is the miscellaneous nature of these accusations. If the problem was that I was a pedophile, and I say back to Jeremiah, okay, let's meet at the police station, because he originally said he had criminal charges against me, that he wanted me to be arrested. And I said, okay, meet you at the police station. Why did he back down from that? He backed down from it because it was a lie. So if your first point is that you're actually concerned about me being a so-called sexual predator, if that was actually your concern, why would you switch to saying I'm a wife beater? And he's gone through a whole bunch of other crazy accusations too. The reason is that this is just a bunch of miscellaneous made-up bullshit. So someone who is basically intelligent and detached about it can tell just from the format and sequence of the accusations that they are all equally bullshit. There never was a legitimate reason to think I was trying to get with teenage girls. There never was a legitimate reason to think I was a pedophile. And there also has never been a legitimate reason to think I was a wife beater. So no, I mean, on my channel, I have several hours of talking about my divorce. On my blog, I have written accounts talking about my divorce. I'll just say, I mean, you know, I like to say positive things about my ex-wife. I am a real intellectual. My ex-wife is also a real intellectual. In many ways, she's a brilliant woman. She became fluent in Chinese in just 2 years. Very hardworking, very intelligent woman. She has a PhD. She has a career of her own. In many ways, I respect her as an intellectual. And our relationship, although, of course, you know, we were in love, we loved each other, it also was a very intellectual and very political relationship. So, I mean, if you read all that stuff, you know, the written account and the YouTube and so on, of course, you know, both the things that drew us together, like why we fell in love in the first place, in large part they are intellectual, and the things that drove us apart were intellectual also. Now, some people find that hard to relate to because they're not intellectuals. You know, I mean, if your life is about politics and history and the study of languages and humanitarian work, which for me it is. I mean, the humanitarian element is linked to all the research I did, including the work on Buddhism, the work on Cambodia, and the work on the Cree, the indigenous people of Canada. So, you know, Cree and Ojibwe. You guys have at least heard of the Cree and Ojibwe because you're Canadian. You know, I was at First Nations University doing that stuff. So that stuff is really, really important to me. And if you think that can't tear a marriage apart, you're an idiot. I mean, you know, why do you think I went to Cambodia? Why do you think I went to Saskatchewan? What do you think motivated me to do all this hard work in all these languages? Yeah, this stuff really matters to me in my life, intellectually as well as in humanitarian way, you know, trying to make a positive difference in the world. So those were huge factors in the divorce. They had nothing to do with anybody getting beaten up. And, I mean, in terms of the other factors, there were, I mean, again, to be polite, there were things that my wife did wrong that I just do not talk about on the internet. It sort of vaguely alludes to, I just sort of, in both the written account and the video, say, look, there are bad things here that I'm not going to talk about because I just don't want to say negative stuff about my ex-wife. Neither, you know, if my daughter sees this one day, nor, I just don't think it's cool. I mean, to be blunt. Nor, you know, if her boss, if her employer is going to see it, I just don't think it's cool to badmouth my wife in terms of the more personal stuff. But no, I mean, the bottom line is, I just said this to Jason the other day. You know, Henny and Jason broke up. They weren't married, but they were long-term boyfriend and girlfriend. And he actually called me up on the night of the breakup. We think we talked for like 2 hours, which is great. I mean, it's wonderful. For me, it's wonderful to have these kinds of friendships with anyone via veganism. I'm just, you know, I was surprised that he called me, of all people, to talk about it. But, you know, one of the things I said to him is, you know, you have to be careful with what verbs you used. When I divorced my wife, what I said to people, and even what I said to her was, you know, we decided to get divorced. That's what it is. With adults, you know, we decided to get divorced. She didn't dump me. I didn't dump her. You know, that happens in high school. That happens, you know, or with a very immature or very short-term relationship with grown adults. Sometimes people just dump or just run away or something. Nobody ran away. Nobody got dumped. You know, I was with her for 6 years. We decided to get divorced. And as I say, none of this stuff is drama. None of it's trivial. It's meaningful to me. I think it's meaningful to a lot of my followers. That's why I'm willing to talk about it.
Absolutely. I just want to say once again, thank you for answering these difficult questions. And I know we all got to go into your personal life and really go through it, but
yeah. So how does how does it feel? Just like your whole life is being picked apart here from your personal life. What's going on? How does it feel to have everything so broadcasted out there on the internet this last?
Well,
week?
look, I would ask you guys personally and all the viewers the opposite question. How would you feel? Because I think one of the things that's really despicable, veganism, people say it's about compassion, people say it's about sympathy, but there's been a horrifying lack of any compassion or sympathy in how other vegans have responded to this. How would you feel if it was you being accused of pedophilia, of being a sex predator, etc., and on such ridiculous basis? You know, you guys know we haven't even talked about this. I was only in Chiang Mai for 2 days when these allegations got made. I hadn't talked to anybody. It is a complete 100% fabrication. And, you know, most of the people making response videos to this and denouncing me and so on, they haven't even watched the videos on my channel that just lay out the facts. They haven't even watched the 3-minute video that shows you what the writer actually said, much less have they seen the other videos that present, as I mentioned, just because it was funny, I made that video presenting what Julia Bohr said or what have you. So everything is out there to be known. It's not a matter of speculation. But you don't know any of that, you don't care, and you have no sympathy, to just do that most basic fundamental thing of asking, how would I feel if I was in his situation? And that question, it is a very useful guide to figuring out what the right thing to do is. So no, I mean, this is like an intelligence test for a lot of people. You guys have come out and shown that you're both smart and people of real principle and people with real integrity. That's what you've shown. I mean, even if people hate your video, because, they may hate it for different reasons, they should recognize the intelligence, integrity, and that you are men of principle in doing that. And a whole lot of other people have come out and identified themselves as the opposite. A whole lot of other people have come out and identified themselves as being, on the one hand, idiots, because stupidity is real, and on the other hand, they've showed that they have really no sympathy and no interest in even just doing a good and thorough job of checking the facts that have been made so easy to check on the internet before weighing into this. So yeah, I think this controversy is going to leave a shadow on veganism for years to come, and it's going to be, for a lot of people, they're going to be looking in the mirror. I mean, look, when I was in Chiang Mai, I saw it, but I felt it. I got it from the internet through email and what have you, but I could see it in person in Chiang Mai. There were a lot of people walking around, just emotionally devastated by this. Not even because they feel sympathy for me, because they were asking themselves, is this what veganism has become? Is this who we are in 2016? That is really the saddest reflection of all. Is this, whether they thought of themselves as specifically Rotel 4 or they just thought of themselves as vegans. I mean, you think about what veganism is. Veganism is inviting people to make the world a better place through a pretty humble, attainable set of means. If I ask you guys to stop using plastic, that's almost impossible. Everything. My computer is made in plastic. This container is made of plastic. I rely on plastic for so many things. But if I say to you, the world's a better place if you lose plastic, really hard to do. But, we're trying to just say to people, you can make the world a better place, starting with eliminating animal products, meat, leather, etc., from your life. Such a simple, positive message. And this is what it comes to. Threatening to beat someone up, threatening to kill someone, defaming someone as a sex predator. It's so low. And again, it's not really about me or my feelings or my ego. This is so shameful for veganism. And a lot of these people are too stupid to even feel ashamed of themselves. But you should be. A lot of you people watching this right now, you should be ashamed of yourselves.
Well, I feel that, people that have gotten into veganism because they've looked at the facts, they've looked at the research, and I just feel like this situation should be no different, especially with the amount of content that is available to take a look at the information. Because if you just look, like you said, it's going to take a smart person, because you need to be subjective and really critically think for yourself. But if you look at your side of it, look at Duran's side of it, and just come to your own conclusion, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to really see what's going on.
You guys figured it out. It's not that hard to figure out. One side is lying about everything, and the other side is telling the truth about everything. It's a really extreme contest, and that's why this scandal is so different from other scandals that happened in the past. It's so extreme. It's so clear cut. Yeah.
So another one of the rumors would be, or something I've heard, I don't know, is that you've been banned from Canada vegan social.
All this stuff is made up. I mean, like I say, it's completely made up. And the actual, I just mentioned, Durian Ryder doesn't know anything about the geography of Canada, so even the accusations don't make sense. I was living in Victoria, BC, and he was saying I was living in French Canada, in Quebec. It's like, you guys know.
I'm from Canada. That's far away.
Oh, I know. So that's like saying, if I was living in Spain and you were accusing me of getting kicked out of a vegan organization in, Russia, the distance is so enormous between Victoria. So, no, all this stuff is just complete nonsense. And, look, I say this again. People who've grown up watching the TV news, they're used to, in politics, this has a technical term. It's called the fallacy of false equivalence. It's when somebody on the news sits down and says, well, there are two versions of the story. This is what this guy says, this is what this guy says, and maybe the truth is halfway in between. People do that with left wing versus right wing, with all kinds of examples. Or even they do it with a murder, where the murderer has a story, and the witness has a story, and people pretend the truth is halfway in between. You can see why it's a fallacy. No, the murderer has a reason to lie. Now, does the witness have a reason to lie? That's a question. That's why we have lawyers and courts, right? But in this case, there is just no sense in which the truth is halfway in between.